Hello, this is Brett Knowles. This is a short explanation on how it is we're going to execute the cascading of strategy within Scott Batter. The overall issue is this. Strategy is developed from the top down but executed from the bottom up. How do we ensure the organization is aligned around those goals and can actually accomplish them? So, quickly, this is the methodology that we've proposed in our proposal to you. And this video is going to show you the cascade activity, which begins at the first step, continues through the second, third, fourth, and fifth steps. So we're going to track how this cascade occurs and how we ensure that linearity. So the overall dilemma is this. If we create a corporate level scorecard, as we cascade that down to different product groups, there's instructions that need to get passed. Likewise, we're going to cascade it down to each of the regional areas. And so the issue is this. Corporate may have some objectives which are mandatory, or maybe even specific measures which are mandatory, which means each of the regions must report that strategic objective and what they're doing against it, or that particular specific KPI. Likewise, the product groups might have the same. They might have specific strategic objectives that they need each region to execute, or specific KPIs that they need each region to report against. So that's the challenge that we're trying to meet. Let's go back to that work plan. Remember, step one was to build that corporate level strategy map. From there, we're going to go build the product sustainability strategy maps. The third step is, once we've built those two, to go off and understand what the cascade rules might be. So for example, let's say in the corporate level we decide one of these objectives is mandatory. I've marked that by this pink objective. So what that means is, as we take a look at each of the products, we should probably include that mandatory objective on their strategy map. Now, as you can see, it may occur in a different location. It may have a different weight. It may even have a different metric. We can make those decisions as part of the cascading rules. Likewise, when we do the cascade down to the regions, they should also have that mandatory strategic objective. And again, it may be in the same location on the strategy map. It may be different. It may have the same weighting. It may be different. It may have the same metrics, or they may be different. Those are the cascade rules we need to establish. Likewise, when we come to do the products, there may be objectives within each product group that's also mandatory. In other words, we need that to appear in the cascaded strategy maps, either the strategic goal itself or the specific metric. So again, we should be able to allocate those objectives or measures across each of the regional cascades. In this way, we've come up with the structure that we need to have imposed from the overall corporate strategy, cascading down to the individual regions. Now, in the case of Zagreb, we may need to go back and add these mandatory objectives in. Of course, that won't be too difficult. Now, there's other sources where mandatory objectives or measures may come from. So the obvious one in this case is, because we're doing a bunch of work with TNS and their Future Fit business benchmark, the benchmark itself establishes a number, 21 in particular, of specific goals and defined metrics that we should have on each of our scorecards. So likewise, we can take that framework, identify those metrics that might be mandatory, and allocate those back to the regions, the products, and corporate. So we now have completed the cascade. What we've done is taken the mandatory objectives and measures from the corporate level and the product levels and ensured that they are reflected at each of the local sites, along with any other frameworks, such as Future Fit. So in this way, we've ensured that as the regions go off and build their strategy map, it's as consistent as it needs to be with the overall corporate map. Now, different clients impose a different level of constraint or mandatory objectives. So, for example, Johnson & Johnson has 3 mandatory objectives: a return on investment, a corporate culture, and a continuous improvement objective. And every business unit has those. By contrast, a franchise like McDonald's mandates all of the objectives. In fact, they really have 5 strategy maps. A strategy map for an express, a strategy map for a regular McDonald's, a strategy map for McDonald's with drive-through, a McDonald's with play area, and a McDonald's with a play area and a drive-through. And the whole corporate is built on those 5 standardized strategy maps with the same metrics and the same weightings. So Scott Batter isn't that franchise model, but it may be more structured than a Johnson & Johnson conglomerate. In either case, that last step 3 ensures that we have that consistency. So again, we've done the corporate, product, ensured the cascade rules, and now created a series of location-specific strategy maps. So we want to go to the final step, step 5. In step 5, we're going to make sure that the sum equals the parts, or to say another way, that the developed strategy maps show the right level of support and alignment. Now, there's several ways that we can do this. I'm going to show you a fairly complicated way. When we come to work with your team, we'll determine the right amount of science. The approach I'm sharing with you, we've done for a number of other chemical and pharmaceutical companies. So the idea is this: we've created those 2 cascades, a regional cascade and a product level cascade, which are both based on the same strategy map. Now, I know illustratively we've got more product cascades than we're going to create. This is just a standard slide deck that we use all the time. Now, it's important to note that these regions are there to help us achieve these product objectives. So there's a relationship between them. So as a relationship, what we'll do is we'll list the regional cascades down the left of a spreadsheet, and across the top, we'll put the products. Now, what we'll actually do is get rid of the strategy maps and just put on the objectives. Then we should be able to score the relationship between these. So green means that the product group needs support from the regions and the region has that support. Yellow means it's not quite to the level that the product or region expect. And then finally red is a significant gap. And the gray illustrates either one-sided relationships or conflicts. So in this way, we can begin to surface whether the cascade is working correctly. In fact, because these are all numbers, I can actually create a chart for you that describes what's going on. So in this case, the gold diamond represents the level of support the products are expecting. The blue bar represents the amount of product support the regions are providing. So in this case, there's a gap between what the products think they should be getting and what the regions are providing. We also have the opposite case where the regions are particularly thrilled about a particular aspect of the product and are putting more focus on it than the product team expects. Now, again, all we're trying to do is surface that invisible mismatch between what the product wants and what the regions are delivering. Now, we can add it up horizontally as well to see whether the regions are getting what they need from the product portfolio. What does that look like? Well, again, now the gold diamond triangle represents what the regions are expecting, and the blue bar represents what the product groups in aggregate are delivering. So there's a gap between what the regions need to be successful and what the product groups are delivering. Again, all we're trying to do is make a risk-free environment to have a conversation about the support that the regions provide and that the products provide to each other in achieving success. Now, this seems complicated, and as I said earlier, we can do it many other ways with simple post-it notes, affinity diagrams, just a simple conversation. So let's summarize. We've now built this relationship between the overall corporate strategy, products, and locations. So let's say, for example, we have a bad performance occurring, and that bad performance occurs at each location. Well, because we've thought through this framework of the cascade and have that consistency, what it means is that you can now see trends that occur across locations that you would not see if you only looked at any one location. Likewise, sometimes we'll see an event that occurs in different ways across some or all locations. And in fact, we discover that that aggregates up to a specific product or even a strategic corporate level issue. And again, if we had these individual operating units as Scott Batter currently has, these overall trends are invisible. And this only occurs if we have this top-down cascade framework in place. So what are the overall benefits? Well, there are several key ones. One is it allows you, the leadership team, to see thematic issues across locations or across products that you cannot see from any one location or product. So things like raw material pricing across the globe, market shifts, etc. And that cross-location wisdom is what corporate is supposed to be bringing to these disparate individual locations. Secondly, it allows you to build an agility in your organization because it allows you to develop and roll out strategies or priorities faster than the competition can. And this is particularly advantageous, we find, in industries like yours, where we have significant players like you competing against mega corporations. So we can use that cross-location wisdom and our agility to get in and out of markets faster than the big guys can. And then it also enables you to do scenario planning. That way you can see the impacts of changes in weightings or strategic goals across all locations from headquarters before you roll them out. And that way you've got a better expectation about what the future might hold. Finally, it allows a significant reduction in meeting time because now individuals can see the connectedness, or in fact the uniqueness, across all locations and products. And this allows us to make sure that as we're looking for learning experiences across the business, we pick the right locations. So all of this is about making invisible stuff visible so everyone can make decisions consistent with the leadership team on a moment-to-moment basis. I hope this has been a useful explanation for you of the cascading process.